The Big Cat Coalition formed in 2011 to end the big cat crisis in America. Together, these animal welfare groups and Big Cat Rescue have been working on a three-pronged approach to end the abuse of big cats and their cubs. They petitioned the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to close the generic tiger loophole that allows backyard breeders to flood the country with inbred and crossbred tigers. They petitioned USDA to enforce the Animal Welfare Act that was created to protect captive animals from abuse, such as overbreeding big cats, only to take their cubs away just after birth for pay-to-play schemes. And they have worked with federal lawmakers to enact a ban on the private possession and breeding of big cats. This is the congressional briefing held at the Capitol on December 9th, 2015.
My name is Carol Baskin, and I am founder and CEO of Big Cat Rescue. I've been working with big cats since 1978, for 35 years. There is estimated to be between 10 and 20,000 big cats in backyards and basements across America. But no one knows for sure because government agencies don't keep track. Since 1990, there have been over 740 dangerous incidents involving big cats, tigers, lions, cougars, and other species. 5 children and 16 adults have been killed, and another 50 children and scores of adults have been mauled. Big cats pose a serious threat to public safety as well as to law enforcement officers and other first responders who must risk their lives. When these animals escape or attack, you will find these stats in the handout, but I'd like to share a story with you that explains why this is happening. On March 4th, 1996, 2 of the worst cases of physical abuse I have ever seen came from a breeder in Pahrump, Nevada. And I'm going to leave you hanging there.
Thanks, Carol. I want to welcome Representative Blumenauer. He's co-chair of the Congressional Animal Protection Caucus and a co-sponsor of the Big Cat Public Safety Act. Welcome, Mr. Blumenauer.
I don't know. I like the timing here. One of the worst cases you've ever seen, and here I am. I deeply apologize for not being able to be here at the beginning of the briefing, but we were trapped voting, and in fact, one of the lead co-sponsors, Walter Jones, is on his way here. I just wanted to express our appreciation for your being here and focusing on something that I think is indefensible. And I'm not going to try and do what these folks will do with much greater authority and precision. But it's telling. We don't know if there are 10,000 or 25,000 big cats in captivity. We know they shouldn't be in captivity, and you will hear chapter and verse about the tragic consequences for people, to say nothing of the circumstances in which these magnificent creatures are forced to live. I wanted, on behalf of the Animal Protection Caucus, to welcome you. If you represent an office that is not yet a member of, we have over 127 bipartisan members, we encourage you to join. We would encourage you to work with the caucus because every month we profile bipartisan legislation that actually should be on the suspension calendar. And the work that we do with your help makes it more likely that they will be and that they move forward. This legislation already has over 24 co-sponsors, but it should have 300. And so the more we can work with you to get the work out, frame the importance of the issue, both for animal welfare, for human health, the better off we all are going to be. So thanks for being here. If you're not a member of the Animal Welfare Caucus, please sign up. If you have legislation that you think is a candidate for this sort of bipartisan approach, because we haven't filled every one of the slots next year. There's room, and by all means, if you are half as affected as I am by the information you're going to receive, we really hope that your office will co-sponsor this legislation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, we're all hanging here. Make sure it's not me.
Carol, sorry. Another cliffhanger.
questions?
And the Republican co-chair of the caucus.
Welcome, Congressman Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. Well, obviously, I associate myself completely with the remarks of Representative Blumenauer. We are the co-chairs of the Animal Welfare Caucus, so I want to thank you for your interest in the Big Cat Public Protection Act. There are a lot of bills out there for you to talk to your folks about. None of them are really so obviously sort of important from a welfare point of view, but also from a public safety point of view, as this particular bill is. And there are a lot of reasons to support it. I just want to sort of give you a local perspective. My name is Mike Fitzpatrick. I represent Bucks County, Pennsylvania. About 15 years ago, Representative Walter Jones here is his bill, right? Representative Jones is probably, and I want to thank him for taking an interest in this. And by the way, you got a great panel of interest and experts right here. I think we're going to have a sheriff, sort of.
I work for Homeland Security.
Homeland Security, but is there a sheriff that's getting piped in? One of the others that's helping out on the bill as well, a sheriff from one of the counties across the country. But let me give you my sort of local perspective. About 15 years ago, I represent this county, Bucks County, between Philadelphia and Trent, New Jersey, and it includes a town called Levittown, which is the town I was raised in. So those of you who know your sort of community planning history, it was the original quintessential planned community, the first suburb. It was built for returning World War II veterans, for a group of individuals in this country never thought they'd be able to afford a home. And so these homes, it's a blue-collar, first-generation suburb, very small lots, homes with a lot of kids. And about 15 years ago, I got a call from, I have 6 children, I got a call from my children's kindergarten teacher. And they wanted me to know this particular teacher walked around, very walkable community, walking around her neighborhood every day after school. And she had noticed in her walks this particular backyard that had a cage. And the cage didn't have just sides, it had a top. And there was no fence around the perimeter of the school, eighth-acre, quarter-acre property. And when she started asking questions and being concerned about children, as you would believe a kindergarten teacher would be, she found out that what was in the cage was Canadian lynx. And she started finding out about why would somebody in Levittown, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, community like this have a wild cat in captivity. And there really was no reason. So she reached out to me. I made some phone calls to some public health individuals in our county, and they said it's really not permitted. But the immediate concern was that a small child would walk up out of sort of interest, curiosity, and just sort of put their hand through that cage. There's nothing prohibiting them from doing that. So the teacher told me, they feed the Canadian lynx basically whole raw chickens. And that's what it eats. And if it were to get out, it could pounce, and the pounce is very long. And it could actually get from where it was to my backyard in probably 20 seconds or less. That was in the next sort of section of development over. So the result of this particular family was that they were given a decision, a choice, to either get rid of the cat or to move the cat inside. A situation even worse from a humane point of view for the animal itself. And so changes were made. The lynx is no longer in the neighborhood. But it was one of those situations where instinctively, as a father and as somebody interested in the community, I thought instinctively, why would somebody do that? Not humane to the animal, not safe for the community. And that's sort of, as I'm thinking about Walter Jones' bill and why Earl and I sort of co-chair this caucus, as I said in the beginning, you get a lot of opportunities to talk to your bosses about different bills. Few are as instinctively right and humane, and from a public safety point of view, obvious as this bill is. And it's one of the reasons it's a good bipartisan bill, it's an important bill, and it's one that I think Earl and I would agree we should get a suspension vote on and would pass on suspension. So all sides of the political spectrum agree with this, and we appreciate the support of the Humane Society and Born Free and all the organizations that are supporting us. And we appreciate your being here to listen to what the subject matter experts have to say and go back and talk to your members If they have any questions, we'll remain available. But I just want to say thanks for your interest, for being here, and for keeping kids in neighborhoods across the country safe and doing the right, humane thing by these wild animals. All right? So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike, thank you very much.
Here's the bill sponsor, Walter Jones.
Thank you. Well, Mike was speaking, and I'm sorry I missed Earl's comments, and I want to thank them both for being the co-chairs. As you know, I was saying today, it's been a busy day for all of us, but I was saying today that you know, God gave us the babies, and God gave us the animals. Well, I know what it was. Yeah, now I remember. I had lunch with a Marine that was a dog handler during their Afghan war, and he's brought his dog back home, and so I took he and his wife to lunch today. They're from Maryland, and his service dog joined us in the members' dining room. Probably better behaved than most members of Congress, but delighted to have that opportunity. But my comment was, in my prayer, I prayed before we had lunch, and I prayed for God's animals. And not because I was going to be here today, but I just had it on my mind because the service dog, who the dog actually has PTSD as well. So, but anyway, this is a great opportunity for members of Congress to join in protecting God's gift. In this case, it's the big cats. My wife and I have two Siamese cats, Buddha and Sadat. And so we are the little cat people, but we have our heart is with the big cats. And this bill, truthfully, is, as I think Mike said, and probably Earl before I came in the room, this is one of those bills that there's no reason that the Congress cannot pass this bill and send it to President Obama, because the bill is a bill to protect the future as well as the present. I'm pleased to tell you, thanks to many of you in this room, as well as those who are the leaders on this legislation sit here at the panels, we have over 40 co-sponsors. And Maggie Airy on my staff is handling the bill, and we have over 40 co-sponsors. What our goal really is to get a hearing. It's been sent to the Resources Committee, and the subcommittee chairman where the bill's been sent is Tom McClintock from California. And I intend to, with the leadership of this protection caucus, I intend to write letters to go out immediately after we return from January asking for a hearing. And the more that we can show on this bill, you know this if you're working for a member of Congress, the better chance you have for a hearing is to get your numbers somewhere around 75, 80, and 90. So that's not asking a lot, because we're starting January with 40. So we're only saying we've got to double the numbers. So that is going to be critical, and I believe sincerely that if we can get a hearing and have a good turnout of the professionals that are here today that know this issue is a critical issue and an issue of love, then I think we can get the hearing. You've already met Carol Baskin. She is, and her family, she and her husband. This is one reason we're involved in this bill, because of their love and concern. I think all of us that are here today understand that the big cat, in many situations, is a threat, is threatened. And if we're going to have the big cat in this country, then there's got to be some guidance, there's got to be some understanding, and not just any and everybody can own a big cat, because too many times that creates threat, danger, not only to the individual but also to the animal, and that is not what God intended. So Carol, I'm going to sit down and listen to you, so thank you so much.
We rescued a black leopard named Shaquille and a cougar named Darla from Carl Mitchell in Pahrump, Nevada in '96. When they arrived, their faces were bloodied beyond recognition. When my late husband called Carl to ask what happened to them, I overheard him responding in horror when Carl told him that he had to take a baseball bat to them and didn't want them any longer. Darla the cougar had a fungal infection in her brain because it had been exposed from the crashing blows to her head, and she wasn't long for this world after that. Shaquille's face was the consistency of ground hamburger, and his eye sockets had been crushed so that even years later, when he had fully recovered, his eyes teared constantly. His involuntary trail of tears were a solemn reminder of the abuse he endured. When Carl Mitchell went to jail for non-animal related crimes, his animals were dispersed, and I was hoping that that was the end of the abuse, but I was wrong. 5 years later, in 2001, USDA permanently revoked its license, and to date there are unpaid fines of more than $100,000 for violations of the Animal Welfare Act and exhibiting without a license. And yet, as of today, he is still advertising pay-to-play schemes under the name Big Cat Encounters. According to investigative reporter Charles George Knapp, he was arrested at least a dozen times in Nevada, California, including a bust in California, for trying to flatten 2 fish and game officers who suspected he was dealing in black market exotic animals. Carl Mitchell has been charged with burglary, carrying loaded guns in public, assault, felony stalking, auto theft, witness tampering, and evading arrest. In 2002, Mitchell shot and killed one of his tigers because it got out. In 2004, his then-girlfriend had one of her fingers bitten off by one of Mitchell's cats. Although he has no permits of any kind for exhibiting his animals, Mitchell has continued to charge $500 an hour for contact with his cats. Mitchell was convicted in the theft of a truck and for allegedly stealing $40,000 while operating the county animal control program. He served 2 years in prison from 2004 to 2006. As soon as he was out of jail, he was right back in the tiger pimping business. A year ago, he was ordered by a local court to remove the 10 tigers from the property for violations of the federal law and local zoning. This summer, District Court Judge Kim Wonker ordered that the tigers be removed by September 1st or face contempt of court charges punishable by up to 25 days in jail and a fine. That didn't happen either, due to further stalling by Carl and his wife Kayla Mitchell by appealing to the zoning department. Opponents of our bill say that states should regulate this sort of thing, but this case is a perfect example of how ineffective it is to try and regulate an inherently abusive and dangerous practice that shouldn't be allowed at all. Meanwhile, the business of charging people to pet big cats at the Nevada facility has continued, in violation of the law, for another 14 years. If you go to the Big Cat Encounter site today, you will see images of tigers off-leash and outside of any fenced perimeter. This puts the public and law enforcement at risk, and this isn't an isolated incident. This is just one of the more flagrant lawbreakers. Most are smart enough to hide their misdeeds until there is a tragedy. I come from a long line of law enforcement officers, and I can tell you that they are not equipped to deal with lions, tigers, and other big cats. Today's speakers will tell you firsthand how they have been called on when big cats have been released. You will also hear from experts in the zoo industry who understand the danger and expense of keeping big cats in captivity. With that, I'd like to introduce one of my personal heroes in that world, Ron Kakin, director of the Detroit Zoo.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to the legislators and legislative leadership that is taking this on. It is fundamentally a matter of common sense, surrounded by animal welfare issues and public safety. And so often we beat up on legislators because we can't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. But in this case, it's very impressive to see this kind of leadership. I have very brief remarks because I think perhaps the most compelling piece for most of the legislative work that needs to go on relates to public safety. Obviously, as a bunny hugger, as somebody who's very passionate about animals, I care a great deal about welfare. And we created the Center for Zoo Animal Welfare at the zoo, so this issue of exotic animal welfare is near and dear to us. Americans heard the story about Cecil not that long ago, and we were outraged. Yet there are at least 10,000, maybe 20, maybe 30,000 big cats like Cecil that are here in private hands, and for the most part in really awful conditions. So let's just talk about tigers for a second. The United States has 230 accredited zoos and aquariums. So if you subtract the aquariums, because most don't have tigers, something less than 200 accredited zoos in the U.S. And there's a total of 400 tigers. In the wild, there are about 3,200 tigers left. So to put that in a zoo's perspective, we have more than 3,200 people come through the doors of our zoo in 1 hour. And that's all that's left on the planet, except perhaps tens of thousands of tigers that are in private hands. Those tigers are of unknown origin. We know nothing about the genetics. Why is that important? It doesn't change the compassion we should show to those animals, but they can never be in a conservation program because we don't know their background. They may very well be inbred. Of course, a lot of people have heard about white tigers. That's simply a mutant. It's not a subspecies. It's not endangered. So you then think about Cecil and the lions and the same story. There are only a few thousand lions left. You may not know this, but 90% of the distribution of lions in the wild, it's gone. So this is a very serious issue in terms of conservation. Your accredited zoos are trying very hard to make a difference. A number of major initiatives have recently been launched, like SAFE, Saving Animals from Extinction, all part of AZA. Meanwhile, just like Carol and her sanctuary, on a regular basis, we are called upon to rescue animals. We had for 20 years Katie the crack house lion. She was on guard duty in a basement in Detroit. Where else, how does somebody think that's going to play out when they buy a lion? We have lions that lived in a junkyard in Kansas. They were on chains, protecting this guy's junkyard in Kansas. Literally hundreds of animals that we have rescued over the years. And the story about the baseball bat reminded me that it's not just cats. We had a bear that had been beaten with baseball bats and then pitchforked in the face. This stuff has to stop. And it has to stop at a federal level rather than having local municipalities and states do this patchwork that is unbelievably difficult. We need the help of the federal government to protect animals and to protect people. Something which hardly ever is discussed is all of the zoonotic disease risks. So you're going to hear about public safety, but I want you to understand when people interact with a big cat, there is a very serious risk of the transmission of toxoplasmosis. If it happens to be a bear, there's a terrible risk of Balis ascaris. If you get Balis ascaris, you have a very good chance of dying. This is a huge issue, and somebody who's going and interacting, having their photo taken with a tiger, may not know for 6 months if they've contracted something and where on earth did it come from. The same thing with rabies. Even if an animal has been vaccinated with the rabies vaccine, none of those vaccines have been validated, so you can't be sure. It's really time for us to just use common sense, make sure that we're not harming animals and that we're not exposing the public to a ridiculous public safety concern. Thank you.
speaker needs no introduction, as he is well known for the starring role in the documentary called The Elephant in the Living Room. As a retired law enforcement officer and paramedic, he's seen it all when it comes to big cats wreaking havoc when they escape. I hope you never need his services, but given the enormity of the problem, it isn't a matter of if another Zanesville tragedy will occur, but when.
Thank you, Carrie. I want to tell you that I appreciate you having me here because I'm going to be speaking for police officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency room doctors, and pediatric physicians and veterinarians from around the country, as you're going to see when I do my little program here. We're all really disgusted something hasn't been done already, especially with emergency room doctors. Because perfect example, I hope you all picked up one copy of the documentary out here, The Elephant in the Living Room. Please take that home with you. You can actually take a look at it and see what's going on and get your fingers on the pulse of what's going on. What I'm going to do is introduce you to a world that you didn't know exists. And the sad part about it is you actually did, because one of your friends have told you somebody's had a tiger. Somebody's friends have told you somebody's had a leopard, right, next door neighbor. So you know it's out there, but you didn't know how big it was. First, right off the bat, we move forward here. Which takes the first up right here. Okay, I'm an author of 2 books, 2001, 2006, okay? That's how long ago this was getting started, really bad. It's been constantly moving and getting worse because it's the market is saturated with tigers, as you'll see in the documentary. They're giving them away. They're breeding them so fast because it's a big business. Now, when it comes to public safety, I'm a police officer, firefighter, paramedic for the city of Oakwood, retired near Dayton, Ohio. I am currently now adjunct instructor for TEACS NERTC, the National Emergency Response and Rescue Training Center at Texas A&M College, what they call Disaster City. Please look it up. It's the biggest training facility in the world at this time. We are going to go past this and go to a picture there. This Disaster City, I get to teach governors, mayors, government officials, fire chiefs, police chiefs, emergency room doctors. Everybody comes in to learn how to play well in the sandbox when we have a natural man-made disaster. In the process of doing that, I get to hear stories from all over the country. And everybody's got a story of a big cat. And that's stunning. So Disaster City is a very cool place to be. That's what it looks like. But I want to throw that in there because I throw that story in there because this is just one I want you to remember for the rest of your lives. This is Hurricane Ike. This is a newspaper article. Happened at Hurricane Ike in the Boulevard Peninsula in Texas. Okay? What happened was Hurricane Ike came in and just blew the heck out of Galveston, Texas and the Boulevard Peninsula. In the process of blowing the heck out of it and killing people, can you find Waldo in that picture? There was a church, the only church on the Boulevard Peninsula that people could get into when the hurricane came through. Do you see any people in there? Do you see an African lion in there? You know what, you want to see the people? They're dead outside the church because they couldn't get inside. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Get inside the church because we had to respond. Now, it wasn't just an African lion, ladies and gentlemen, all right? There's a good close-up picture of a lion going through a hurricane. There was 2 tigers loose also. They had to shoot one, kill one, and the other one had to be darted by a fishing game before they could even bring in the task forces to work in there successfully. This is a national problem. We just had Tiger NATO in Oklahoma. Anybody from Oklahoma here? They got T-shirts of it because when the tornadoes came through, blew down that one rescue facility out there. They said it's a rescue facility, it's a breeding facility, right? Roadside zoo. It's not a real zoo. Ron's got a real zoo. AZA. These are just roadside people that breed and sell. And some animals got out. And the emergency manager for the state of Oklahoma was having difficulty. We trained him in Texas. What am I going to do? As police officers, firefighters, paramedics, we're always the first ones on the scene. Always. We all know that, right? Doesn't make any difference what animal it is. We're the first ones on the scene. Now, there's a tiger loose in Ventura County, California. Remember that? Right past the Ronald Reagan Library, down to the elementary school. They had to shoot and kill it. Or Zanesville, we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, where I had to respond to that. And guess what happened in Zanesville? 56 of the most dangerous creatures on the planet turned loose. Was it 38 big cats? 38 big cats turned loose on a city of Zanesville, right next to elementary schools. And they had to kill over 49 of them. We were able to rescue 6. Let's go past this. Oh, let me go back. I've got to show you this one. Hopefully it'll pop up first. Here we go. See if it'll take a second. Hopefully it'll play for us.
Try double clicking it.
Okay, click back. Okay, let's see if it'll play for us. What this is, if it shows, this is the first undercover piece ever done at a dangerous wild exotic animal auction. Okay, we did it with Inside Edition. It's not the most credible place, but it's still Inside Edition. What happened is this: we took 2 stories during that period of time out of hundreds of stories, as what these gentlemen and young lady over here can tell you. This little boy reached through a fence in Arizona and got his arm ripped off by a neighbor's tiger, not his own personal tigers, these organizations take. It's never a neighbor, so they got his arm reattached. If you don't think this little pretty little girl was killed by her father's tiger, who jumped over the father, played too rough with the little girl, and broke her neck. He didn't mean to. And now you're going to see me going undercover inside an exotic animal auction. We're going to take you in a world you've never seen before. Now you ask, where do you get these animals? I want you to start looking at the crowds. Look at the crowd of people. Black leopard cubs, as fast as you can bring them out, as you see her bringing them out. Every one of those boxes has got cougar cubs, black leopard cubs, and tiger cubs inside of it. Look at the crowd. They're teachers, they're school teachers, they're doctors. Anything you want, you can get there. Anything you want to buy at these auctions, you can get anything you want. This is the one that just happened to be in Mount Hope, Ohio. Even sloths. This is why I'm getting ready to speak in Costa Rica, because they sell sloths up here. We're not going to go into that because we're in big cats right now. Black leopard cubs and cougar cubs is fast. Look at the crowd. These are people from all over. These are not trained people. These are people, look at stacked on top of each other, black leopard cubs. They sold 35 black leopard cubs that day. This is one I took out of a house in Dayton, Ohio. Somebody's pet. Once they become sexually mature, they don't need you anymore, and you get a baptism in reality real quick. But you can't handle this cat anymore. They call what? The police department. Okay, because the zoo is not going to, they don't want to take your animal at that time because it's not a purebred. It's not something that they can handle at that time or could bring a disease onto their property. So we end up having to go and handle these animals. Now, I want you to watch what happened. This is what they talked about, the difference between a ZAA zoo and an AZA zoo. Rivendell Zoological Park was a ZAA, Zoological Association of America zoo. Did you see on their thing? Don't have these as pets, but they're selling them to the local public. We call them zoo babies. You see zoo babies at these little roadside zoos, but you don't see zoo teenagers, do you? Well, go to the auctions, you'll see them. They've moved now from Ohio to Oklahoma and Texas, because Oklahoma ain't got no laws. So now they're just like running wild out there. The reason I want to show you this one too, this has a little something about reptiles, because we had Governor Casey came to us and everything else back. I'm from Ohio, of course, we had serious problems out there. And he even said, Tim, you got all the major cities. You got laws in every major city. Why do you need a state law? Why do you need a national law? Well, guess what? We go right down to a reptile auction real quick. As soon as they told me that, I had to laugh at him a little bit to myself. So I walked right out and we went right to Columbus, Ohio. We had a reptile auction. Can't sell a venomous snake in the city of Columbus, so I'll go half a mile outside the city on a rest area along the interstate and sell you any venomous snake you want in a styrofoam container. And that's the same with tiger cubs. That's the same with bear cubs. You can't sell them in the city limits or in that state. It's like, I think, Carol, you talked about you go from one state to the other. They can take all the animals they want and come into our state of Ohio and get your picture taken with them, as long as they do it in 48 hours. That's ridiculous. They're going on interstates, driving on the road with tigers and lions. And as highway troopers and police officers, we're disgusted by that. What are we supposed to do when these incidents happen? It's my favorite picture of all time. Some of you already got this. It's on the paperwork that's been handed to you. The reason I brought this into my storyline too, that's Harlem, downtown, apartment building. This tiger was discovered because the owner was bit through the leg, and I do teach emergency room doctors, we talked about, and EMS personnel, what to look for. Dangerous wild exotic injuries and attacks. He goes to the emergency room, tells everybody he got bit by a pit bull. It's a through and through bite on the calf. So he looks at this, and that's not like the slide Tim showed me earlier. That's a big cat bite. So he calls the local police department. They show up, drill a hole in the door. We all know the story. Put an optic in there. Boom. 400-pound tiger inside there. So what do? They get a dart rifle, because police officers, we don't carry dart rifles. We can't carry the medication as a paramedic. I can't carry ketamine and Rompun. That's not part of the drugs I take care of it. So he had to get a dart rifle. That's the police department. You see that, right? That's the police going down the side of the wall. They had to smash out that window and dart that cat, risking his life to try to get that cat out of there, alive. As they took the cat out, the attorney for the city of New York, who happened to just be the program I was out speaking public safety down in Texas, she's there now, Dallas's attorney. She says, Tim, can I finish that story for you? Once they got the cat out there, we don't know what to do with it. They got a cat in the back of a truck they don't even know what to do with. So they decided, we're going to have to send it back. Who wants it? Noah's Lost Ark in the state of Ohio said, we'll take it. Guess where it came from? It came from Noah's Lost Ark. It was bred there, sold at the Mount Hope auction by this gentleman, bought it, took it back to New York. So tell me again it's not a national problem, right? Tell me again. I want to hear these organizations tell us as police officers and emergency room doctors and paramedics that this isn't a national problem, right? That's it right there. Real quick, this leopard was shot in Indiana next to somebody's swimming pool. Nobody knows where it came from. It's right on the border. You can't see the border up there, you can a little bit. Ohio. I put that on there because, ladies and gentlemen, a leopard in Indiana, that's not India, that's not Africa, it's Indiana, Ohio. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Think about that. Does that leopard know where the borders are? All three of them come to the same spot where he was shot. He doesn't know it's illegal to go in Ohio, right? See what I'm saying? It's a little bit common sense here. We've got to start paying attention to this. And I love it too, and sometimes when the deputies, they killed, it's a jaguar or was it a leopard? We don't even know. This was another incident that they had a shootout. And real quick, some of you have already seen this. I came to your offices to talk to you a little bit about it. Cougar loose in downtown Dayton, chewed through a door. It was an abandoned house. Got out, attacked police officers and firefighters. I came in there, we had no dart rifles. You can't shoot it in a community because there's houses with humans in it. So you just can't start shooting at a cougar running. I don't know if you've been around a cougar running and growling. You can't even see it sometimes, it's so fast. So I get there, I throw a bull rope as it was chasing after one of the police officers. And I gotta remember, I'm a police officer, and I'm a firefighter, and I'm a paramedic, and I love what Carson said earlier. I never thought of this. I got a wife, I got 3 boys, I got 3 daughter-in-laws, and I got 6 grandkids. Every one of those cops and firemen and our firewomen there all had the same thing. We risk our lives enough with terrorism and police activity. Do we have to have this? The same city of Dayton, we had a tiger jump out of a house. It was a structure fire. Jumped over us as we were fighting the structure fire. Never got a tiger in the fire scene. Well, I end up throwing a lasso around him. It runs into the bushes, flips around because cats don't have much of a neck, right? Flips out of the rope. Real quick, I got it with a dog snare, flipped it over. I grabbed it with what I call the God's handle, had a gag with this, picked it up. Another officer got my back foot because I was trying to tear my hand off. I don't say carry cougars like this, please don't, but nobody's taught me any different yet. Somebody teach me. If you know a better way, please teach me. And I got him by what I call God's handle, and off we go down the sidewalk. Okay, and this is in a heavy populated area, but I want you to look at my side. I'm soaking wet. That cougar peed all over me. And I felt like doing the exact same thing. That's what I'm doing here for my brothers and sisters in public safety, but also for my own personal selfishness. I never want to do this again. I never want to be put in this predicament again. I don't want anybody put in this predicament again. I don't want the cat put in this predicament again. And I want you to pay attention too. We got to the animal control, man. We're all politicians in here. The animal control says we don't want it. So we're fighting this cougar for 2.5 minutes, trying not to get ourselves hurt, till the lieutenant came up and commandeered the van away from the animal control people so we could throw it in the bag. Now, I don't know if you ever tried to pick up your German Shepherd and wrestle with it. My Maxim is about 100 times stronger, this cougar is, than your German Shepherd. There he is. Also, too, when you start talking to other organizations try to come up against us, that's a cop standing there. That's a firefighter. When they tell you no cops or firefighters are ever in danger of this stuff, just please come to our website and you'll be introduced to real police officers. That's him. That's the happy cat. He's happy. Okay, let's go here. Let's see what this pops up here. Past that. Oh, this was Awesome Possums. We're going to have to show you this. Awesome Possums was a show. It was on Animal Planet. After Awesome Possums, people were asking, why are people getting these? Awesome Possums was on TV. It was a show teaching people how to take care of tigers in their home. I couldn't show you because it was blacked out for some reason. Shows you how to take care of cougar, black, and tigers and stuff in your own homes. It was on Animal Planet for like 2 years. These people here, immediately in our community, went out 4 tiger cubs in less than a month. 4 separate families went immediately out and bought them. So they were called by the police department and animal control to respond because a tiger cub will tear you up too. That's why at certain ages they're not allowed to even get their pictures taken with kids because they'll tear you up. Okay, one guy actually drug in from a street gang there, drug in a rope tied around one of the tiger's necks, was dragging a cub into a pet store, said, I want a muzzle for my cat, my tiger. And they told him, get it out of the store. There's no muzzle for a tiger. Okay, we're going to hustle up here so you guys get you out here in time. This is what happened was the Zanesville massacre. Okay, you see Jack Hanna, you see Sheriff Lutz. Sheriff Lutz has got, most of you have got the paperwork from him. He was the sheriff there at the time at Zanesville when the 56 animals were turned loose. What happened, that's the instant command post. You'll see me back in the corner back there, right behind him. I did respond. It was horrible. I never want to see this ever again. But in the situation that happened there, they had to make the decision. There was 56, 38 big cats. They had to shoot to kill. There is no way you're going to have a machine gun darting machine that's going to start taking these things down. It was getting dark. It was cold. The amount of money that was spent on just the police aspect of it and the public safety aspect was astronomical and actually bankrupt them almost in their county. When you're talking about, yeah, almost took them down. It was a huge, huge financial thing just to be able to handle that situation. This is what it looked like, and I never want to see this again, ever. And you should never want to see this again in the United States of America. I speak in Australia, I speak in South Africa, I speak in South America. They don't have this problem. Australia thinks we're nuts. What do you mean you keep a tiger in your house? Come on, they even have more respect for their environment than we do. Let's start thinking about it for a second. Count them. There was like 18 tigers that were killed. You know, African lions, 10. Bears, it was just ridiculous. I never want to smell that. I never want to see that again. I never want to hear them dying. Okay, so I'm here begging you as police officers and firefighters and paramedics. I want you to remember too, one of those officers never did go back on duty that had to kill these, and a bunch of them still have post-traumatic syndrome. Can you imagine being charged by a tiger in Ohio? This is IFAW has always helped us out with rescues. I just put that up there. This is some of the tigers we've taken out of people's backyards, private owners. It's a lion we took out of a backyard. We talked about ball bats. And once you start thinking in your mind now, why did this lion attack police officers when it came to the property? He was beaten in the face as a cub. That's how they train him with softball, those aluminum bats. So they train big cats. So they'll be calm. They'll be calm for you. And they end up fractures in their skulls. I can't show you the surgeries. We're originally going to show surgeries and stuff. We don't have enough time. And they have fractures in their faces and they grow into them. And guess what? I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not an animal expert. I'm a common sense expert. If you've got fractures in your head and you're growing into them, you're not feeling very well. And it's going to make you a little more aggressive. And all of a sudden this animal turns on me. The animals don't turn on me. These animals don't turn on anybody. The tiger turns tiger. That's what he's supposed to do. The lion turns lion. But then you got the injuries like this cat had. Now we throw out the zoonotic. We're always talking about zoonotic diseases. Please pick up the documentary. If you'll be sadly, I'm just calling it because I'm in it. I'm just telling you, it's really wakes up a lot of people. It's all over the world right now. This is Mike Weber. He's the filmmaker. He makes the 20th Century Fox movies, and Lionsgate came to me, read the books, said, I'd like to do a documentary on this. So he followed me around for a year and a half, or a year and 8 months. He caught a disease in the process of doing that. We were around 175 chimpanzees, hundreds of big cats. I'm not even exaggerating. And we could not figure out why his skin started sloughing off. He lost 40 pounds. He was bedridden for 6 months, and he almost died. Now, the magical part about all this is he went to the Cleveland Clinic, which, some of you aren't from Ohio, but the Cleveland Clinic's where the people from Saudi Arabia bring their people in to get fixed, right? They could not figure out what was wrong with him. It had to be a veterinarian, the deputy vet for the state of Ohio, Dr. Paul Stahl, DVM, who's with Outreach for Animals. He said it perfectly. He said, Tim, I think I can figure this out. This is a mite infection off of the lions. Now, the zoonotic part of this is outrageous, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about rabies. Think about it this way. You have to vaccinate your dog and cat, right? You got to get a license for it. You got a 500-pound animal walking through your neighborhood that has no vaccinations. Wow, go ahead. Let them live in your apartment building. Move them on in, right? If any of you can go out right now, call to your local emergency room and ask your local emergency room doctor, is it okay to keep a lion in my apartment? Is it okay to keep a lion in my house? A private, unskilled person. If he says yes, then he'll never see me again. I know they're not going to because I've been talking to him for the last 4 years. And you do that with pediatric surgeons too. It's okay for kids to be around lions. Think about that way. That's where you need to be leaning towards to get these laws passed. He did survive. It took 2 weeks of hell, but he lived through it after they gave the medication. Real quick, 6 of these cougars came out of this woman's house. I talked to some of you already today. These 6 cougars came out of her house. She had them in her living room. The really funny part about all this is, the sad part of it is, I went right down to the fire station, just a block down the road from this house. I said, you guys know that there was cougars in that house? Nope. How would you like to be fighting a house fire and all of a sudden, it happens on a regular basis across the country, you run into a big cat? That is not a good decision. Now, see, this will start up for us here. This should stun you right here. Now, you're looking at, yeah, that's a cage, Tim. I just look at a cage, and that's one of our veterinarians that works with us. That looks like a cage, Tim. That could be a barn. I want you to watch here. This is what I'm used to on a regular basis. Carol gets calls once a month. I get calls every so often as people talk about. We don't know how many animals are out here, how many big cats are out here, because there's no registry. There's nobody registering them, so we don't know. And they're breeding them all the time. Now, we're going to get this young cougar out of the house. This is one of the 6. Give him a little ketamine, take the edge off, you know what I mean? Just take the edge off here, a little injection. Now, why don't you watch where I walk out here? And that's Dan Hunt right there with me. He's an American military army. We're carrying this cat out. Candy dishes, sofa, out the front door of their house. This has stunned a lot of people when I come speak at states. They're like, oh my gosh. I said, yes, you had 6 of those living right in there. Now, besides the health risks, man, my God, it's the health risks. The physical risk on people is outrageous. This is another location we went to later where they had 13 tigers in the backyard, 10 African lions, and 1 bear, all by himself. And we're getting ready to dart them. And you know, it's not that easy, as Carol can tell you. As law enforcement and public health people coming in, we have to give them full physicals, ladies and gentlemen. You have to draw blood before we can take them to Carol's. They got to be healthy before they get them. So, we don't have to watch all that. Okay, one of the things too you're going to see in the documentary, we're real big on, as public safety individuals too, is that we want to try to keep the birth rate of these animals that people have in their private homes. What we'll do is we'll stick contraceptives between their shoulder blades if the owners allow us to do it, because a lot of places it's not illegal for them to have them. So we'll volunteer to do this for them by giving them, cleaning their teeth or giving them a, physical, and we'll stick this between their shoulder blades, and so for 2 years they can't have cubs. So we've been doing that very successfully across the country. We've done it in South Africa too, some other places. Now we're done here. I think I got you guys good, so the rest of you get out of here close. I just want to ask some questions real quick. People talk about statistics, right? Oh, Tim, they're saying this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. The organizations say it doesn't happen. This is a coroner's report of a young man in Cleveland, Ohio that worked for a very well-known guy named Sam Mazzola, who's, all the movie actors and actresses would come in and get their pictures done, commercials would be done with this guy's property. He wasn't a guy that was a zoo, he was just a private guy that raised animals. Well, Sam, this guy was working for him, young man, 24 years old, he was killed and eaten by a bear, a black bear, a trained wrestling black bear. I use this because I want you to look at that report, ladies and gentlemen. There's not one word of a bear on there. Not one word. It's like the coroner said, the coroners I work with, we don't have any place to say it at. Just like the doctors don't have no place in the emergency room if a guy's attacked by a tiger. So what does it say at the bottom? Can you guys read that? Is it too good? Accident at work. So when somebody comes up to you from the ZAA or one of these organizations saying, we never had anybody killed, right? But wait a minute, remember this. Contact local emergency room people. Contact the emergency room individuals. Contact my organization, and we will get you in contact with the people that you can actually get that report and look at it and go, wow, right? Now I see how hard it is. It's almost this smoke and mirrors kind of mentality, okay? Well, I appreciate you guys letting me speak, but I'm begging you for the thousands of public safety individuals out here that need your assistance. Please help us out. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Tim. I guess I'll open it up to you guys if you have any questions for our speakers.
Ask them now. I'm flying out tonight.
Pretty fast with time I'm sorry, but I am left with the concern that there's a fairly prevalent black market for this, and law enforcement firefighters will still be ill-equipped to handle this. So how does this still solve the problem?
What it is, first of all, they register the animals that's in the area. This is not always black market. It's straightforward. You can get them off the internet. You can go to these auctions and pick them up. The thing is like Ron was talking about here, they have response teams at every zoo. Every AZA zoo has an animal response team. So as police officers, the registration, like Carson's been working out here with the IFAW, they'll be able to know where these animals are generally located. I agree with laws because 80% of the population will do what the law says. When Bobby's walking along with his daddy at the fair next time, I want to buy a tiger cub, knee-jerk reaction, or a lion cub we talked about with Simba from the Lion King. Okay, you know, knee-jerk reaction. And he's going to say no because it's against the law. I want that 80%. We're always going to have that 20% that's going to speed, you know, take drugs, whatever it is. You know, we're going to go ahead and have that as police officers. We want the ability to get the good people, not to get them. And you'll see, watch the documentary. That's a good man as those lions that escaped. A good man. He just had a knee-jerk reaction, which he should never have had in this country.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to pick up our materials outside if you haven't already. I did want to just add one more thing. Tim discussed the situation in Zanesville, Ohio, which Sheriff Matthew Lutz and his officers had to deal with. There's a letter in our materials that kind of describe his experience, his letter of endorsement for the bill. It was an extremely expensive, extremely traumatic, and very, very difficult experience from all perspectives for those officers. So Tim, of course, spoke very well on behalf of police officers and first responders, but I encourage you to read that letter as well to kind of get Sheriff Lutz's perspective since he was not able to be here. Thank you again.
The Big Cats need your protection. Be their voice.